One of the biggest factors in your enjoyment of the sim and your usability of the sim is going to be your visual settings. So here we are on the visual settings page, or the graphics page they call it. What we want to do is come up with a set of rendering options that give you the best looking sim without sacrificing too much performance. And the term that we use for this is frame rate. So you want to have a target frame rate of at least 30 frames per second. You can think about it like a movie that's running. A frame is one still from that movie. If we have too few of them, the sim is going to be really jerky and hard to control. You can't really have too many of them. The more you get, the smoother and more realistic it's going to look. But the better looking each frame is, the more taxing it is on the computer, and the fewer of them I can render every second. So we have some fairly high settings. And the other factor in this is what the computer is trying to render. So I'm just going to hit done and go into the simulation here for a moment. And so I've got a whole bunch of things going on here. I've got the airplane in front of me, we got the prop spinning. If I jump out of the plane and I move out into the world, you can hear as I go away from the plane, I've got mountains in the background, I've got cars moving. Right? I can pan out, I've got water all around me. It's a pretty busy world. Let me jump back down into the airplane here. In order to see what kind of performance I'm really getting, what I want to do is go up to my settings, and I want to go to this tab, Data Output. And the very first option is frame rate. I'm going to check Show in Cockpit. You can even see in the background something's popped up. Done. The number that I care about is right over here on the very far left. So I'm getting about 24, 25 frames per second right now with these settings. Now, it's a little artificially low for me because I'm also recording this screen and my voice while showing it to you, which is even more taxing. But let's see if we can get this up into the 30s zone. First thing, I'm going to go to my settings, go to graphics. Let me crank everything up all the way. Right? Maximum quality, most number of world objects, best reflection. I'm going to draw some shadows, draw a parked aircraft. This is maximum graphics. It'll take a moment for it to reload. Okay. We're back in game and I'm getting 11 to 12 frames per second. You can see the prop looks a little weird, and I'm going to go ahead and release the parking brake here. You can see when I pan down to look at the parking brake, boy, that doesn't work so well. I'm just going to try and taxi. I'm going to go forward. Plane's responding slowly. I try and turn. It doesn't look very good. It's hard to even move and get the plane to line up correctly because it's sluggish on its response. And I'll pause it right there. I have lots of detail, but the sim's unusable. So let's go back to the rendering options and let me put them back kind of where they were. Now, one of the things about these options is if you hover over the slider, you'll get a pop-up. And it tells you exactly what that option does. But I'm going to give you just sort of a global, give you kind of a global reference right now. The ones on the left, these three over here, generally tax your video card. The better video card you have, the better and higher you can be on these options. The ones on the right generally tax the CPU, the processor in your computer. So the more powerful the processor, the more cores perhaps you have, the faster they are if you have it overclocked. That is where you'll see performance over on the right. So depending on what it is that's slowing down the graphics, you can move one or the other. You might be able to have some of these settings very high with no hit at all. I'm also going to turn off Draw Parked Aircraft and Draw Shadows. Shadows are a huge hit on scenery. So let's start with the ones on the left. You saw all those world objects. I'm going to bring that down to minimal. And the reflection detail I'm going to bring down to minimal. I'm going to go and hit done. The sim will have to reload. And what you'll see when I unpause here, I now have 38, 40-ish frames per second. So, you know, I can really move stuff around. The sim's nice and smooth. It looks good. But if I jump out of the airplane here, you look around the world, you'll see all those houses are gone. You'll see most of the buildings and everything on the airport property all gone. Vanished. But I'm getting 40 to 43 frames per second. I'm above my target 30. That means I can definitely put some of those things back. Let's see what happens if I crank up world objects and reflection detail, but I crank down the visual effects and the texture quality. So now very little strain on the video card, but lots on the processor. All right, we're back in the world. I'm still up high. Can move around. If you look, I have lots of objects out in the world, but I have kind of not quite the nicest scenery here. And if you look, I jump back into the airplane. Take a look at the stripes on the ground, the edge of the cowling right here in the glare shield. See how pixelated those lines are? That's because I've brought down my video settings. I brought down my video settings to the point where I no longer have any of that nice smoothing of lines, the anti-aliasing, and I've knocked my frame rate down into the 20s. Let's bring the world objects down to something just reasonable enough in medium. And the reflection detail, actually, I'm going to bring down to minimal, because frankly, it's just not something I really care about in the sim. I want objects in the world, I want stuff in the scenery, but I don't really care about the details of reflections. Now I'm going to bring my visual effects, let's bring them up to high, but I can bring down my anti-aliasing a little bit. So instead of this combo, I could bring it down maybe to 4 times. And I could bring my texture quality up. Let's just bring it up to about medium and see what happens. This actually feels like a pretty good compromise for me. I'm getting 36, 37 frames per second here. I've got a reasonably smooth panel. I've got plenty of objects in the world. I probably even cranked that down a little bit. And let's go ahead and taxi. Because as I strain the system, I'm just going to watch the frame rate. Plenty of cool things for me to look at. And I'm just going to assume I'm cleared onto the runway here. And we'll do a rolling takeoff. Got RPM is good, static RPM, engine gauges are in the green, actually temp's a little warm. Airspeed's alive, there's 55 for rotation. Head for VY. And as I fly, as the world's going by, I'm still seeing in the 30s for frame rate. So really something decent, nice and smooth. I'll pause once more. See if I can crank up my anti-aliasing just one step further for smoothness and texture quality medium. What does that do for me? No real appreciable hit on frame rate. Good. I'll go back and bring up the texture quality just to high. Now I want to make sure that it reloads those textures, so let's just go ahead and we'll change my location. That was Renton Muni. We'll just go nearby at Boeing Field. Start a new flight. There's also quite a bit of scenery here, so this would be a good test. So here we are at Boeing Field. Looks like I'm kind of down on the south end of the runway complex here. Plenty of stuff around. Looks good. Let's hop over to a runway and we'll take off here. In fact, we're just testing around the sim. Let's just take off from the taxiway. Fun things you can do in the sim, not in the real world, to save a little bit of time. Besides, if famous actors can do it, why can't I? So again, 34 frames per second. This is looking great. So these are generally good settings for me. I'm staying above 30. And then beyond that, everything is eye candy. I mean, I can make things nicer and nicer and nicer and nicer, but these settings work pretty well for my sim. And if I wanted to shoot some videos or something with particularly beautiful objects in the world or shadows on everything, I could change my settings temporarily for that, but they're not going to be good for regular flight and regular play. So these are the settings I'm going to go with. What I encourage you to do is just try the same things yourself, try different things, see what's most important to you. One more thing I need to show you before we go is that we've been doing this with pretty benign weather. So we'll talk about setting the weather later on, but what I'm going to do now is make this a broken overcast, customize overcast cumulus, and we'll throw in another cloud layer here. Another overcast cumulus layer above. Make this one broken. Much more complicated clouds. And now my frame rate's down around 32, something like that. Again, above that magic 30 number where everything is really visually pretty smooth. And what you can think about it is, like I said, 20 to 30 is functional, but we're trying to get above 30. 30 or better is good. Anything above really 50 is eye candy. And if it's below 20, you're just going to get frustrated. So do what you need to do to bring the frame rate up.
Use the Show in Cockpit checkbox for frame rate in data output to see your frame rate while you tune your system. You want a frame rate better than 30 frames per second for satisfying sim use. More frames is better. The left-hand settings in graphics stress your video card. The right-hand ones stress your CPU. Scenes vary in their difficulty to render. Complex landscapes with many objects and shadows, as well as layers of cumulus clouds, are big hits to frame rate.